Good evening and welcome to Wax Wednesday here at the Tipsy Muse. I'm Rob, your host. This is something we've been doing for the better part of a year now, but we've kind of evolved the progress, or the process rather, to instead of making it just DJs coming in to spin records for a couple hours, now we kind of focus on some albums that were made in the area here and talk to the people behind the music. So we got a great artist this evening, one that I hope he's prepared to gush, because I'm a huge fan of him, his work, his words, and the band that backs him up. You know them as the Hypochondriacs, and the album that we're talking about actually came out in 2016. It is called In 3/4, and very, very happy to have Josh Bravener with us tonight, and we'll talk to Josh about the making of this album here coming up very soon. A few people I want to thank before we get going. Backstreet Records is our sponsor, and this evening is produced by the great work and the great team of Raynemaker Productions. That's Andrew, Bruce, Arthur, and Tim is our director this evening. So, welcome to Wax Wednesday. We'll sit down with Josh Bravener and talk about In 3/4 in about 4 minutes. And we're back, Wax Wednesday, with Josh Bravener of the Hypochondriacs, and today we're discussing an album that came out a couple of years ago, but that's kind of what this is all about, taking these high water marks for, musical history and heritage in Fredericton, and I think you really hit the mark with that.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed that album from start to finish from the first time I put it on, so thank you for such a great release for starters.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. The Hypochondriacs, they're an interesting recipe. You
Right,
know?
yeah.
A lot of people, for lack of a better term, will call you a country band, but I don't think that's necessarily true. Rockabilly kind of fits. Soul fits.
Absolutely.
Rock, all of it. What's your background? Where are you coming from to come to this? What we have is the Hypochondriacs.
Well, I started playing music through impersonating Elvis, so my background was really early rock and roll music.
Yeah.
But Elvis is such a good gateway drug to other genres,
Yeah.
like country music, soul music, rhythm and blues, that through him I found like all these paths to all the music that inspired.
I remember seeing you perform as I don't think you were any more than 10.
Yeah, I started when I was 6. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you were obviously a natural for the stage then. You certainly seemed it.
Well, I don't. Hey, thank you.
Well, obviously, your dad has an influence on you there as far as
Absolutely,
getting you
yeah.
out in front of people and performing.
Yeah.
How'd that all start? Did you come to him, or did he say, "Hey, Josh, come on over"?
Well,
here
he started impersonating Elvis as a gag, but he was a part of this program called Perfect Parties by Nancy. Were you familiar with that?
I do remember that.
And they would do singing telegrams and kids'
yeah.
birthday parties, and he had all these characters. And so he thought he found like this hokey jumpsuit and a stupid Elvis wig, and he added this kind of ridiculous Elvis character to his repertoire.
Right.
But it turns out he was pretty good at it. So he entered into some contests, and I saw him doing it, and I approached him and said, I want to do that too.
You want a piece of that?
Yeah, I wanted to do it too.
Well, I mean,
it looked fun.
Well, for sure, and Elvis is a great entertainer, so I mean, he's a great guy to emulate.
Yeah,
for sure,
absolutely.
Right? Tell me about some other influences. When I know we just heard Last Night, which is definitely a doo-wop, a throwback to the 50s.
Yeah.
50s vocal groups. Any of those stick out to you?
Well, on top of like Elvis and stuff, I was a huge Bobby Darin fan.
Okay.
So the song Dream Lover was a song that when I was a kid I really, really loved.
Uh-huh.
And so that whole crooner 1950s, 60s kind of like cool guy, suave music I was really into.
Yeah.
Looked up to them in a way. Yeah. But I mean, Last Night came as it was more of a joke than anything when I first wrote it. Because I remember thinking, because when I was starting to write music, I wanted to write country music.
Right.
Because I was such a big fan of like Hank Williams and George
Sure.
Jones and that group of people. But I was thinking to myself, in the world that I was submerged in musically, there was nobody really doing anything doo-wop sounding that I had heard. And I was like, man, that is such a good sound. Because I was thinking of Bobby Darin's Dream Lover.
Sure.
And I was thinking, man, that's such a cool sound. Nobody's writing anything like that. So I wrote it as a joke, and I ended up, Nikki Blewett, who was playing in the band at the time, I sent it to her. I just did a little recording on my iPod. And I was like, man, what do you think of this? We should do a song like this. She said, I think it sounds great. We should just do this one.
Yeah.
And then that's how that song came to life.
And the vocal arrangement's really cool. The girls really bring
Yeah,
it out.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so awesome.
Because I remember sitting in my bedroom being like, last night, ooh, last night. And like having like the idea for the call and response
Yeah.
right away.
Very cool. When the album came out, I saw you perform a number of times. Are you tired of talking about this album, or are you ready to move on to something else? I know you're planning on going into the studio soon.
Yeah, I'm tired would not be the right word to use about talking about the album. I'm flattered
Yeah.
that people still want to talk about the album.
Yeah. As you should.
Because, I
be.
mean, that's what you hope for, that you release something that even a couple of years down the road, people are still interested and still curious about knowing. But I'm excited to move on.
Okay. But thank you for honoring us to talk about this one for this time tonight, because, like I say, it's an album that means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you.
And obviously the songwriting comes from a very personal place in a lot of this album. And again, getting back to your dad, I have The Meeting Place queued up, and I know it's a story that you tell so well. But
Thank you.
but over time, the story gets shorter and shorter, and I kept wanting to hear the original story over and over again.
Right.
Because I think you get tired of telling that story.
Man, maybe sometimes I just forget some details.
But The Meeting Place, that's coming from a very personal place.
Yeah, I
for you.
mean,
Little background on it for those that don't know the story, if you don't mind.
yeah, well, a little background. The Meeting Place was a church in Fredericton that my father founded.
Yeah.
And it was basically a church for people who didn't like going to church.
It was non-denominational.
Yeah,
kind of.
non-denominational.
Yeah.
Everyone says that, but there are roots. It was kind
Yeah.
of a Baptist-rooted church.
Okay.
And but my dad was pretty cool, pretty chill, pretty secular, and he started this kind of group of people. They had what was called the drop-in center, which were low income or homeless people would come at night, and we had this basement with pool tables and dartboards, and that was the place for them to go. And they would hold like really cool events for kids, where we would stay up all night, and like there'd be live music, and they'd be showing music videos on big screens, and we would just stay up all night and party to Jesus, I guess. Yeah.
Sounds like a blast.
It was.
Yeah.
But when my dad started impersonating Elvis, he found out that he could meet people through Elvis, because Elvis was very spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very spiritual being. And through the Elvis gospel and stuff, he would go and he would play shows as Elvis, and he would mention that he was the minister Elvis, because it was, a bit of a joke to him. Like, not a joke to him, but it was like funny that he was this Elvis, but he was also a pastor. Mm-hmm. But as soon as he said that, people would be like, where do you preach? Because I want to go. Because they saw this guy impersonating Elvis, and they wanted to go to that church.
Yeah.
So he started finding like it was a good way to meet people through entertaining. Elvis, he was a big part of it, but just entertaining in general, people were really interested in. But the church saw it as like I don't know, Elvis was a sex icon, and I'm not 100% sure on their reasoning. They did throw that in there, that, he was impersonating this kind of like sexual figure, and they were uncomfortable with that. And they hated it, and they started trying to make all of these excuses to why. Because when that didn't work, I'm telling my dad, like, this is ridiculous. They said, you can impersonate Roy Orbison, but not Elvis, which is funny.
Someone less sexy.
But yeah, less sexy, for sure. But at this point, me and my dad have been impersonating Elvis for a few years.
Yeah.
And we were going all around Canada, even into the States, as Elvis impersonators. And we had a show. He was, the older Elvis, and I was the 1950s Elvis, and we had like this whole production. We toured with Elvis's drummer, and it was kind of like it was a real job for us, and it was super fun. But the church saw that, they didn't like it, and they accused my dad of worshiping Elvis as a false idol, that we were we were praising Elvis, which is hilarious.
Well, it is.
I
'cause
wish we were.
Look at all those 50s guys and gospel music in the church.
Yeah.
Like, that's the backbone of their musical
Yeah.
heritage. their
Gospel
existence.
is one of the biggest backbones in rock and roll music.
Yeah.
So that's all ridiculous. They sent someone into my house as a kid to see what it was like, to see if we had like Elvis stuff all over the walls and a shrine. They ended up going back to the church. We didn't. I can guarantee this. We actually didn't have anything Elvis related on the walls. My sister, I think, bought my dad an Elvis calendar for Christmas or whatever.
Right.
But they went back to the church and told them that we had our house was covered in all this
Really?
stuff, and it was an issue for them. So they started to believe that my dad was possessed, because in receiving all of this news,
Yeah.
my dad started having these really bad panic attacks, and it got really bad. And when you're in a congregation like that, you go to the people you're close to, such as the church, and you talk about those issues. And they said, well, it sounds like you have a demon, and we need to exorcise it out of you. And they tried. They laid my dad down on the table and did the whole... Seriously. They did the whole thing, exorcised the Elvis demons out of him. He didn't have a demon.
It sounds so ridiculous to hear you say that. Exercise the Elvis demon.
Right. Exorcise all demons, but the Elvis demon for sure. But so that all happened. So they asked my dad actually to step down as like the elder of the church. Yeah. So we weren't like banished yet, but they asked us to step down, and my dad just kind of went back to doing like the youth part of the church, because my dad was an entertainer and he would like make balloon animals and he had all these characters. And he said, okay, well, if you want that to be my role, that will be my role. And they got mad at him for not talking to people after church, but instead hanging out with the kids and making balloon animals, and that was an issue. And then they came to us and told us that the whole church was talking, and actually they didn't think my dad was anointed anymore, and that he actually kind of lost it, and that he was actually a terrible minister. So they gave him the ultimatum: you can either give up the act and come back as our pastor, or you can leave. And I really remember we were picking my mom up from work, and I remember sitting in the back of the car, and my dad telling this to me, saying, okay, Josh, this is my option. It's either we stop doing Elvis or I leave the church. And I remember breaking down crying, because up until that point, like, I really loved the church. I was a Christian kid, and these people that I trusted are all of a sudden being like, okay, well, here's this thing that you really love. You got to stop doing it, or you can't be a part of this family anymore. And I remember being just torn apart.
Yeah.
And like, are we allowed to swear on this program?
Sure.
I remember being like, well, fuck that. Fuck you. So I was like 8, but that's what I would say to them now. Fuck you. No, we're going to keep doing this Elvis thing. And he said, okay. And he left. And my dad has been doing entertaining and like picking up odd jobs ever since. But going from having this, well-paying job to all of a sudden living below poverty line just for his family was like the coolest thing a dad could do, but also was, the hardest on the whole family, because we went from living comfortably to having nothing in a matter of weeks, months.
How does your dad feel when he hears the song "The Meeting Place"? Do you guys ever talk about it?
We have talked about it. He really likes it. Yeah.
He should.
Yeah.
He should be very proud of it.
Yeah. And we know the church has heard it. They don't like it.
No, they wouldn't.
It was funny because I told this story in almost that much detail at a Shivering Songs, which is coming up. My first Shivering Songs, and some guy pulled me aside afterwards, and he said, I want to know more about this church. And I told him, and he goes, okay, I need to let you know that I go to that church. They changed the name. They're called Christ Church Central now, or Christ Central Church. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's a terrible organization. They should stop doing what they're doing.
Well, The Meeting Place is a powerful song.
Thank you.
We're going to play that right now. This is Wax Wednesday. Thanks for coming down to the Tipsy Muse. We'll be back in a couple of minutes' time with more with Josh Bravener on the Hypochondriacs album in 3/4.
A long time ago lived a preacher man who looked deep in his soul and said, what do I want the most? To spread the word of God in the whole.
That's the Hypochondriacs in the Meeting Place from their In 3/4 album, which we are discussing tonight with Josh Bravener. This is Wax Wednesday. We are down at the Muse on Regent Street in Fredericton, and back with more of Josh. Production is stellar on that track, and it is the album. It was Chris McLean, right?
Chris McLean, yeah, Skinner, all in the Mind Studios.
But you mastered it in Nashville, correct?
Yeah, so Adam Olmsted, who is country legend here in New Brunswick, from St. Stephen, New Brunswick. We grew up with him, the whole family, spending time at his and his parents' cottage in Loon Bay. And we got talking recently, and when I was doing this album, and he said, "Man, you should go down to Nashville to do the album." But unfortunately, we didn't have the money to do it or anything.
Who can do that?
But he said, "I have this friend, and tell him you're my buddy, and he'll hook you up."
Wow.
So this guy Tim Roberts from Nashville mastered it for us.
Did a beautiful job.
He did a great job,
It's
and he
a
was
great
just like the
sounding album.
sweetest guy. He was super
Older
happy.
guy?
Yeah,
Old school kind of Nashville?
yeah. He's worked with like everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I saw his roster of people, and I was like, Johnny Cash was on it. I was like, okay, yeah, well,
You'll-
this'll do.
You'll be all right.
Yeah.
So where's the band going next? You're working on an album.
We are. Yeah. We just finished writing it, and we've been in contact with the studio, and we're gonna hopefully start recording in March.
So what's the timeline for that?
I'm not sure.
You don't like to put out a timeline.
I know.
but-
I don't want anyone to be too
Yeah,
excited.
yeah.
I would love for it to be out by the fall, because we released. What we did with 3/4 is
That was a September release.
it was
not?
September release. I would
Yeah.
like to do the same.
Yeah.
So we toured the album all summer before it came out, and then we released it back home in the fall, and then went again.
Yeah.
So kind of got people excited about it, and then had the product.
One of the biggest compliments I think give you is when I hear your songs, like even for the first time, I find myself saying, is that a classic country song that I'm just forgetting the name of? Like there's and I'm not saying you're trying to emulate or sound like anybody. It just those melodies and the strength of the lyrics, it just seems so seasoned. And it just
Right.
seems like something I've been with for a while, and they're so catchy. Like I'm thinking of one of your new songs, "Cheated." I think
Right.
that's got a great vocal hook to it.
Yeah, thanks.
In 3/4 is the title track. We're going to get to that next. I know you've got a story to back that up. That's a story of heartbreak, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the whole album's a story of heartbreak,
Yeah.
for sure. But 3/4 was funny because I had this whole album almost completely written.
Yes.
And because this was our first album, so it was kind of these songs that I accumulated like over years of traveling and whatnot. And I had, the first verse of what is now 3/4 written for, I don't know, about 2 years probably prior to actually finishing it. And in the time I was in a relationship and I just wanted to write this heartbreak song, but I couldn't figure out, how to make it just as like perfect as I wanted it to.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of took me being in that relationship and it ending and actually for the first time in my life feeling, heartbroken to kind of sit down and finish the song. And it was, again, at Shivering Songs, a different Shivering Songs. I was working with Michael Fierstack.
Mm-hmm.
And Shivering Songs is this wicked program for new songwriters to come together as a group and be mentored by some of Canada's greatest. This year, 2020's Andrew Sisk. The year I did it was Michael Fierstack. And so I brought him these 2 verses, and I said, I really like the way this sounds, but like the chorus is I'm just lacking on this chorus. And then we got talking, and I mentioned to him that I really wanted to write a song called 3/4, because that time signature for me was like a lot of my favorite country songs were in that time signature. It's the waltz. It's kind
the
of
waltz,
sad.
yeah.
And it was a simple. He said, "Play me the chorus you have now." I don't remember at all how it went, but I didn't like it. It just felt like filler. because I thought the verses were good, but I felt like it really needed a chorus that would like really grab you.
Drive it.
Yeah. And I played him the chorus. I'm like, I just don't really like it. And he goes, okay, well, like, before you went to the chorus, play this chord. It was like a D chord or something. I don't remember. And he's like, see where that gets you. And then in my head, I had 3/4 in my head. And I remember trying to play that D chord somewhere in the song, and I was kind of like just humming along. And then I kind of thought of this like, what I kind of thought was like a silly line, like waltzing out my door in 3/4. She waltzed out my door in 3/4, and then it just kind of clicked, and I finished it, and I finished the song, and I remember the first time I performed it, I had a huge panic attack on stage, and I forgot the words. It's on video somewhere. Someone has it, and anyway, so I brought it to the band, and I said, this song needs to go on the album, and I think we started recording it like a few months later. And then I thought it was good enough to be the title track.
It's one of those songs that I was referring to just a few minutes ago, that it just has that true, great, classic country songwriter vibe to it. And I just love the record, and it's a great title track.
Yeah, because I find like it hard when I sit down and I say I really want to write a country song. I don't want to write a country song that's hokey to the point of people being like, oh, we get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we've heard all of these lines. Like, I have this game with me and my friends on road trips where we will go to the country music station, and we will count the cliche lyrics in every song. So with like pop country, like every time they sing about a truck or
a six pack,
or a girl
on a summer night.
We just count those. So it's like it's just like with writing these songs, is I want it to be just hokey enough. I want the songs to sound like you've heard them a million times.
Yeah.
And so with the next album, I'm trying to do that same thing. It's less country, but I want everyone to be like, where have I heard that song before?
So is that taking your cue there when you say it's less country? The next release is going to be, well, the band is evolving.
Yeah, we have new members.
You've
and
got
we're
new
bigger.
members, and you're a 6-piece now, right?
Yep.
And you've just added Connor Fox on guitar, and
the world's greatest guitar player.
What an amazing addition you got there. I love watching you play guitar too, so I hope you still do.
Oh yeah,
but you're moving to piano more.
I'm playing a bit of piano. When we get a van big enough that I can lug the piano around, I will bring it. But right now, maybe it'll just be a record.
Guitars are easier.
Yeah, because on the album, the tune that we listened to last night, the song last night, we listened to it tonight. I know, right?
Yeah, it's good.
It got a good response, and I really liked playing it live. So I thought I want to try to write more songs like this.
Yeah.
Because some of the songs I was getting a little tired of playing, but last night I've never gotten tired of playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, if I write a whole album like this, I'll never get tired of playing these songs. That's the hope.
The little guitar coda at the end of Reaching Out, is that you playing that big rock solo?
Yeah, that's all me on this album.
That's you.
Yeah, well, the pedal steel is Dylan Anthony.
Yeah.
And he does some pretty wicked solos on the album as well. But yeah, all the guitar solos are mine. But I remember when we got Connor almost a year ago, hearing him play the solos, I was like, I'm done.
Was that hard to step back and hand that to someone? No, you bring it on, right?
Yeah, because guitar playing
frees you up.
Yeah, and guitar playing for me, like I listen back to solos and like I just want to like crawl out of my skin. I don't like it.
Oh, come on.
No, seriously, I'm not trying to be humble at all. I don't like it. I don't like hearing it. Like the solos on this album, I can't do. But Connor he's just the best, and I had no problem making him a full-time member of the band. Yeah.
Well, big days ahead for the Hypochondriacs, I know. Josh, we're gonna wrap this with In 3/4, the title track from the album. I'd like to thank you for coming in and being part of Wax Wednesday tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And it's always a pleasure to just sit down and talk music with you.
Yeah,
and all the best for the upcoming year and the new album.
Thanks very much.
All right, title track from the Hypochondriacs, In 3/4 on Wax Wednesday.